Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar today. We are excited to hear about um, the presentation that Judy Weston from SPS Commerce and Bruno Johansson from Beck Consulting will be talking to us today about how streamlining your EDI can save time and money. We do have a couple of housekeeping tips before we get started. Please silence any devices, especially those who have dialed in. We don't want any background distractions. Secondly, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the question box and we will get them called out and answered for you at the end of the presentation. And thirdly, we do record this in all of our webinars, so if you would like to share it with anyone in your organization or someone else, you are more than welcome to, and we will have it on our website later this afternoon at Innovia.com. So now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Judy, who will start the presentation.
Thank you so much, Angie, and thank you everyone for making the time today. As Angie mentioned, my name is Judy Weston from SPS Commerce. I have been here at SPS for about 13 years, and for half of my career here, I worked with suppliers and manufacturers, not unlike yourselves, and showed them the ease of automating their supply chain with EDI. And then for the last 6 years, I've worked in the channel working with companies like Innovia, as well as our partner in Nav Integration, Bruno Johansson. And Bruno, good to talk to you again, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yep, so hi everyone, my name is Bruno. I'm the solution architect for the EDI integration between Nav and SPS Commerce, and I will run through the demo with you here in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. And just so we all know what we're here to see, just a quick agenda here. We'll be talking about the state of the union in retail, a short trip down memory lane, a little about SPS Commerce and our solutions and how we do EDI differently. And then as Bruno mentioned, in a few minutes, he'll be going through a demo, and then we'll have time for a couple of questions. So if that sounds like what you signed up for, then let's get started. So 'tis the season for ghosts of supply chain past and present. Just a quick note here on what a typical supply chain looked like even as short as 5 to 10 years ago. If you were a manufacturer or a supplier, you may sell to a wholesaler to get to a retail store, which eventually ended up in the hands of a consumer. From a retailer's perspective, what the manufacturer or supplier had to do to get an A+ was be able to receive an order, ship to most likely a warehouse, and invoice. And that's what kind of retail legacy systems were built on, just a very linear approach on the supply chain. This is much more representative of what a supply chain looks like for a typical supplier. So you're still selling directly to those brick and mortar branches, but you may be doing it through a third-party logistics company. So how do we communicate the orders to our 3PL? You may be doing it through a marketplace like Amazon or a brand site that's specific to your brand. A lot of different moving parts and a lot of different communication methods are needed in order to streamline your supply chain. So now today, the supplier to-do list includes not only do you have to receive the order, ship it, you've got to ship it to either an end consumer, to a warehouse, to many different order management models. And not only do you have to get the EDI stuff right, but you also have to make sure that you have the correct item data on the website, accurate and inventory to your buying organization, optimizing your shipping, and then you also have to make sure that you have social media reviews as well. And we all know that these days everybody has to think like a consumer because consumers like us are really setting the stage for how we are reacting. We need to make sure that we're fulfilling the orders from the right place, the right time, and of course at the lowest cost. And it's also determined by your ability to collaborate with your trading partners across your supply chain. To that end, a new supply architecture is needed. and just a little bit of information about SPS Commerce. We started building the world's largest retail supply chain about 17 years ago with a company called Orchard Supply Hardware. They're a division of Sears. Orchard Supply Hardware wanted to automate their supply chain and send orders via EDI to their 3,000 suppliers. Only they didn't have the resources to reach out to all 3,000 of those suppliers and educate them on what EDI is and why they should use it. So they outsourced that to SPS, and we made those phone calls on Orchard Supply Hardware's behalf. We called, we educated, we offered EDI solutions, including a web-based solution that they would be able to go onto a portal site and receive their orders and send back the invoicing and ship documents that were required. And then also, if they had EDI, we went through a testing and certification process on behalf of Orchard Supply Hardware and enabled their 3,000 suppliers on EDI using one of those methods. As we had those conversations with the Orchard Hardware Supply community, we started to hear questions like, well, can I use this for Nordstrom, or can I use this for Target, and can I use this for Amazon? So we started to build out connections to each one of those other buying organizations, and now we have over 3,000 buying organizations, third-party logistics companies, factors, carriers, you name it. If they're in the retail supply chain, there's a good chance that they're already in our network. And then, you know, we did that for Orchard Supply Hardware, and I think we've done over 1,000 of them for large buying organizations like Costco, and then also very small buying organizations who maybe, you know, do business with 5 or 10 retailers, but then realize that on the other side of their supply chain, they would like to send orders to one or two or 5 of their suppliers. So just to hit a couple of highlights on the left, we've had 67 consecutive quarters of growth. We have no long-term debt. And then just a couple of highlights from a few weeks ago during Cyber Week, some stats that we're really proud of. During Cyber Week, we processed 8.4 million transactions, and we met all SLAs to our customers and the constituents of our network. Our web fulfillment solution had 100% uptime. And in those conversations with our customers in the retail supply chain, you know, we talked to them initially about EDI, or you'll see in the middle there, fulfillment, but there were also other issues that they were facing in the digital age. And so this is just a quick synopsis of the SPS Commerce suite of services, and we'll start with the sourcing. And what we heard in talking to a lot of suppliers, as well as buying organizations, is they wanted to expand their product availability online. So .com companies were looking for that kind of endless aisle so that I can at least kind of maintain my footing with Amazon. And then suppliers who were saying, how do I get my items out to more websites? So we created a website, retailuniverse.com, that allows buying organizations and their supplier communities to post information. So I'm looking for socks that are blue, and you can search by different criteria, and we really kind of help those constituents find each other so that they can expand their product offering. If you think about it like a Match.com for retailers, suppliers, and also third-party logistics companies, if you're looking for a 3PL in a certain area, you can search by that criteria. That's kind of the idea behind it. Assortment, kind of as I mentioned before, is very difficult to get accurate item data and inventory information in the hands of your trading partners or your retailers. And then it's also hard for the buying organization to aggregate that data and do something meaningful with it and make sure that their websites are updated. And so we created a solution that allows them to work together in order to get the most accurate item data. Fulfillment, which is EDI, we'll be talking about a little bit more, so I'm going to skip that one for now. On the analytics side, we have inventory information and sell-through data for 300,000 storefronts in North America. And that information is product related on sell-through, what the inventory is. You can search by geographical location, you can search by product type or by store type. So you can, our customers are able to see if they're in a situation where, oh my gosh, I'm getting low on this said item in this store. I need to make sure that Dick's Sporting Goods will send out a purchase order, or we're going to be in a stock out situation. And then conversely, what if you're, you know, there's a surplus of inventory and maybe you don't want to fulfill that purchase order. The last one is community enablement, which we talked about earlier with Orchard Supply Hardware. As I mentioned, we've done about 1,000 of those with buying organizations that vary in size from a couple of $1 million to several $billion companies. So to get back to the EDI solution that we're here to talk about, I first wanted to kind of give you the lay of the land, or the legacy EDI environment, the way that it used to be. So there's 4 things that have to happen in order to have a successful EDI operation, no matter what kind of solution you choose. A, connectivity. So the retailer or your buying organization like Costco is going to tell you how they want to connect, whether that's FTP, VAN, or AS2, and then they're going to present you with manual, or likely manuals, of specifications for each one of the document types that they require. So a purchase order, an invoice, an advanced ship notice all have separate requirements. And not only do they have separate requirements on the side of Costco, but for every retail buying organization, they will have a different set of specifications. So imagine, as you're going forward and you're adding trading partner number 2 and 3 and 4, all those specifications are going to be different, and it can create a very complex environment very quickly. The other thing that needs to happen is making sure that that EDI is translated into a sales order within NAV, which we have contracted with Beck Consulting, which we'll talk a little bit more about as we move further here. So back in the day, it was connect once to each one of your trading partners, have a document type for each document required by a trading partner, have somebody in-house that is schooled in the ways of the EDI, meaning doing the mapping, any sort of changes that need to be made, and just maintaining the system and doing any troubleshooting. And then there's the SPS Commerce solution, which is a cloud-based solution. If you look to the left, this represents one of our customers who is in the food industry. They have 5 different trading partners, so you'll see Costco, Loblaw, and so on the left-hand side. All of those mappings and the connectivity is all built out in the SPS Commerce data center. So in our network, we have all the documents built out for Costco, for Loblaw, and we reuse those maps for each one of our customers that does business with a buying organization. So for Costco, over the last 15 years, we've enabled 18,000 of their vendors on EDI. So we don't have 18,000 purchase order maps that represent those customers. We have one, and all of their data flows through those same maps. The other thing that SPS Commerce does is, besides just reusing that technology and allowing a plug and play instead of building something from scratch, is we also take a look at, okay, for this food company, you've got these 5 trading partners right now who all have different requirements for a purchase order. Let's take a look at what we know about the food industry and what the requirements are of those 5 trading partners, and let's find one purchase order file format that encompasses all 5 of those, and then what you might need to prepare for in the future. So when we're looking at getting orders into NAV, we're not looking at getting 5 different flavors of a purchase order. We really are only worried about one consistent file format. So what does that mean for our customers or people that choose SPS? They don't have to have somebody on staff that knows about EDI or can troubleshoot. They also don't need to have anybody who knows about the mapping or can add any new trading partners. Basically, SPS Commerce does all of that for them. And we also handle the ongoing maintenance. So if there's any issues or questions, our customers just call SPS and they don't even really have to know how to spell EDI in order to solve an issue. And then we also have a non-integrated solution that complements our integrated fulfillment into NAV. This is a screenshot of the portal site that we have, and what this does is a couple of things. It's a disaster recovery or a risk management approach. If something were to happen and you weren't able to process orders through NAV, you're still able to complete EDI orders. Your trading partner doesn't know if you are using the integrated solution or if you are using this web-based platform. Secondly, it also helps our customers when there might be a document that it doesn't make sense to integrate into NAV. For instance, Bed Bath & Beyond has an 864 text message. Well, there's no reason for that to be integrated into NAV, so what we would do is post it in a human readable form on the web portal. The third thing is also, this is good for low volume customers or brand new customers that you're going to do business with. So for instance, let's say that our food company that we talked about in the previous slide got a new trading partner. They wanted to do business with SuperValu, and they weren't sure, well, is this going to be a long-lasting relationship or is this going to be just a promotion? They can add it to this web fulfillment. It can be set up within days. And if the relationship flourishes and it's going to be a long-term relationship, then move it over to the integrated solution with NAV. But it's a good way to kind of start out as a new relationship with a trading partner. And before we get into the demo, just a couple of highlights on why companies choose SPS. We have experience in serving the Microsoft Dynamics market for the last 10 years. As a matter of fact, we met Beck Consulting in 2007 through a mutual customer, and Beck Consulting built that last mile of integration into NAV for SPS Commerce. We talked earlier about our solution scale with our customers' growth, so from the web fulfillment into the NAV integration. And then thirdly, and probably most importantly, is our implementation methodology. This is a big differentiator between SPS and other solutions because we actually help with the complete end-to-end testing. And what I mean by that is, we talked about SuperValu. So from coordinating the testing with the EDI coordinator at SuperValu, all the way through to making sure the order gets through SPS and into your instance of NAV. End to end. So we have a department here at SPS that their sole responsibility is to develop relationships with EDI coordinators at all 3,000 of our buying organizations that we have in our network. And so that gets us a couple of things, right? It gets us information on any changes or new documents or anything that's coming up so that we can be proactive in making sure that our maps are changed prior to the retailer making any change. And then B, we have a relationship so that we can coordinate this testing on behalf of our customers so that they don't have to. That's often the most frustrating part, is trying to get the attention of the retailer to start that end-to-end testing process. And it's also the most time-consuming because we're kind of at their mercy. Because SPS has relationships, we're able to shave some time off of that. So that's all I had prepared. Bruno, if you would like to start the demo, or if there's anything that you wanted to add before we got started, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm ready. So if you pass over to me, I'll show my screen. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now. So I'm going to go through first this data flow diagram, a PowerPoint slide, and then we're going to jump into NAV, and I'm going to go through a demonstration of the product for you. I'm going to repeat a couple of things that Judy already mentioned in terms of how the data is flowing from your trading partners to your NAV database, and the benefits of the SPS network and the standardizations within that network with those reusable business processes, as you can see in the middle of the screen. So you might have 10, 20, 40 or more trading partners that you do business with, and if they're located in North America, you know that they're exchanging files with you or requiring you to exchange files with them in an X12 file format. That's a legacy format. It's been around for a very long time and evolved over time in North America. In Europe and other parts of the world, there's another file format called EDIFACT that is also a legacy file format that's also been around for a long time. I usually say that these file format has been around before HTML. They were developed for a time where it's very important to minimize the file sizes that you transfer over your slow networks. Today, file formats that we'd like to work with are XML, and that's, as you can see on the right side, the file format that we're actually exchanging with SPS. So SPS is sitting in the middle, handling the communication between yourself and your trading partners, and taking those files coming from these trading partners in these legacy file formats and transforming them into a standardized XML file that NAV can then handle and process using standard NAV technologies, which are the XML ports. So NAV natively is built for XML processing, not for this X12 or EDIFACT processing. The main issue with the X12 and EDIFACT, legacy trade and trading partner document types is that over time they've evolved. There are various versions of them that uses various delimiters, various formats in terms of how dates are formatted, and so on and so forth. In addition to that, new trading partners have also, over the decades that these file formats have been in place, made them unique to how they need their systems to work and the requirements that they have. So very likely, two trading partners are going to have different file formats, and very likely all your trading partners are going to have different file formats. There's going to be a little uniqueness into each file that they send out and each file that they want to receive in. For these trading partners, there's really no incentive to make any changes to any updated format such as XML, since they're already standardized on their end and they have met their requirements on their end, and they dictate all their suppliers to just follow their requirements, since they have the cloud to do that. On your end, though, if you need to work with 10 or even just, let's say, 5 different trading partners with different file formats or different versions and uniqueness, it becomes a lot of work to maintain those maps and also create those maps initially when you need to get the system up and running, and manage the change as these trading partners change, because they still do change as well. And if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, that effort exponentially becomes more cumbersome. So SPS sitting in the middle, taking the files from your trading partners in this legacy file format, converting it to an XML format is going to help. And the reason that helps is that a reusable business process that sits in that SPS network, that master map, is standardizing, normalizing, and also converting that file into that XML format. So what that means is that even though those trading partners on the left side here, which you do business with, all have different formats or different types of data that they're sending in different file types and so forth, it's always going to be converted into a standardized XML file on the end, on the other side of the reusable business process. So that XML file that we download into NAV always looks the same, always have the same structure, independent on which trading partner is coming from. So in NAV, we can build a single map and it's an XML port to process this file. And better yet, independent on the trading partner and independent on the NAV system, we can manage this with a single map. So these maps that I will show you here in NAV in a little bit are already built out and are already in use by hundreds of our customers. So we've been working on this product for a long time with SPS, as Judy mentioned. We have 100 customers, and the product is certified for Dynamics NAV, so it's also a proven solution that works. So on the inbound side, I explained the data flow from your trading partners to NAV. On the outbound side, it's very similar. An XML file is generated from NAV using an XML port, standard NAV technologies, and then transported to SPS using that FTP or secure FTP component. And then that file is run through the usable business process on the SPS side, and then makes its way to the trading partner in a compliant EDI format, be that X12 or EDIFACT or maybe even something else. So from the NAV side, we don't need to worry about trading partner specific requirements. And if you've been working with EDI before, you've heard that this trading partner requires this field and this field and this part of the file, and they don't want this description, but they want this code, and so on and so forth. We don't really care about that. We're going to be sending the same file for all trading partners, same file coming out of NAV for the invoices, same file coming out of NAV from the ASN, and so on. And SPS will pick out the information that is needed from that file and transform it as needed to create that compliant 12 format for that trading partner. So the responsibility on the NAV side is to provide all the data in a standardized format, and then SPS will convert it as needed. So that's the outbound side. So our product is built in NAV, it's built for NAV. We only work with Dynamics NAV in terms of this integration I'm going to show you today. The only software you need to install is your existing NAV system, and our add-on, which is going to be sitting in, or extension is going to be sitting in your NAV system. And the exchange is done using FTP or secure FTP, and that component, the FTP component, is also part of the solution and managed all from within NAV. So you don't need any other software to manage, install, or any other servers to manage, install when you deploy this solution. SPS doesn't have any software that needs to be installed either. So all you need is your existing NAV system. We utilize the NAV NAS or NAS component, NAV application server component, for scheduling. So you have an option to schedule the transmissions or schedule the EDI jobs for retrieving data and sending data to SPS. That can be done using standard NAV technology such as the job queue, or just run it on a trigger maybe every 60 seconds or 10 minutes or so. You also have an option to manually run the process. So as I mentioned before, the product is certified for NAV. We are also supporting any version of NAV that Microsoft supports. We also take that further, and we support anybody that's on NAV 2009 executable. So if you're on a version 5 of NAV or something recent that haven't had time to upgrade yet, then we will support that as long as you're on NAV 2009 executables. So with the certification, obviously we also support all the new versions of NAV, so you can be assured that as new versions come out, like 2018 come out, we will also support those versions. The bottom part here is a little more technical. I'm going to go through that quickly, and then we'll jump into NAV. So there are different NAS jobs, EDI activities, EDI jobs that run on that schedule, either custom schedule or every 60 seconds maybe. And one of them is called process sales invoices. So that's going to look through all your posted invoices in NAV that are marked for EDI. It's going to create an EDI message in an outbound EDI message table, as you can see here. And that pending outbound EDI message is then going to be picked up by a process outbound EDI job that's going to send it through an EDI port, which is associated with that NAV XML port and some other XML technologies, some defaulting, some cross-referencing and translations. Maybe an email notification is triggered if that's been configured to do so, and then that's transported to SPS using SFTP or FTP. So every inbound and outbound document goes through the EDI message queue table in NAV, where it's first marked as pending, and then the second process picks that up and processes that. For outbound documents, there are also compliance checks done of the data. So when we send over that shipment, which is going to be our ASN, to a trading partner, maybe that trading partner has mandatory required fields, such as the pro or tracking number. And if we did not fill that in for whatever reason on that shipment, warehouse shipment, or sales order in NAV, when we posted that shipment, then that would fail when that comes to the trading partner, and we might incur a chargeback or something like that. However, SPS have all those rules in place and does that compliance check of that data as it gets into their network. So if that specific trading partner requires that tracking number and you did not submit it, then that will be immediately kicked back to you, and you have the option to jump into NAV, update that posted shipment with the tracking number, and resend that document. So that will ensure that you don't have any interruptions with your data flow to your trading partners, and more importantly, that you avoid any of those chargebacks that could occur with specific trading partners if you don't send them compliant data. So with that, I'm going to jump into NAV, and we're going to go through a demonstration in NAV of the product there. So I'm going to just open up my screen here, close down some screens, sorry about that, and then we'll jump into to my role center here. Okay, so this is a recent version of NAV with the role center, and EDI activities are shown here as part of the role center. So we have an EDI activities part that can be put on your existing role center that demonstrates or shows any of the EDI transactions that are relevant. So you can see pending shipments, pending invoices, pending transfers. So the idea here is everything is 0. Then it means that you don't have any pending documents that you need to review. You can see I have 2 failed EDI messages. At some point I'm going to look at those, but everything else seems to be running fine. Now, there's also an email notification system, as I mentioned. We just go back here quickly. So every outbound documents can be notified by email to you as well. So if you send out a document and it doesn't make its way there because there's an internet connectivity issue or something like that, you will receive an email as well that notifies you about that issue. So next we're going to go through the screens in now. So we'll start with the setup. Start with the messages actually. Let's go through that first. So every EDI message, inbound and outbound, goes through the EDI message table. First makes its way to the table with the pending status, and then process when it's successfully processed, and then failed if there's any issues. All these can be also reviewed. All the trail and all the transactions from historical perspective will be available here too. Periodic activities, we can manually run EDI processes. We don't have to schedule them and run them on an automatic schedule every 10 minutes or so. Most of the time we are going to want to do that though for full automation, but there's an option to manually process them as well. Very, very few clients are doing this though. In the development or test environment, you probably don't want to schedule it. So what you will do is manually run the NAS, which is going to manually trigger those automatically scheduled processes. So in test development, you set up a new trading partner or a couple new trading partners, you test them out, they're approved, and then you can test those with this process instead of having it running automatically in the background. If you have a 3PL, third-party warehouse logistic integration, there's an option to manually send EDI pics to those, and you can also schedule that, but some of our clients prefer to send that twice a day or something like that. There's an EDI log that logs every occurrence of a EDI process that is triggered. So initially we'll have this on, but as time goes, we might turn it off so it doesn't just collect a lot of data that no one is using. On the setup side, I'm going to go through the EDI setup here. So we have a message directory where the files are processed. This is a working folder only, and there's no dependencies or any files in the system, meaning that if you do a SQL backup of your NAV system, which you probably do, or another type of backup of your database, then you don't need to depend on any files in this folder. So your SQL database is going to have everything needed for disaster recovery or restoring into a development or a test environment. Timer interval here is if we start up the NAS with a just trigger every 60 seconds, and we can configure the 60 seconds right here. We do manage the FTP communication component from NAV too. As I mentioned before, there's no other software you need to install, and then this add-on here. So there's a retry count set up. In this case, it's set to 5. So if you have internet connectivity issues, the system is going to retry 5 times before it reports a failure. We also enable logging, and then serial number and keys, version number, pretty obvious what that is. On the processing tab here is just the process jobs that's running every 60 seconds. So this is the most common setup, run every 60 seconds or maybe 10 minutes, run everything. If you want to do something more from a job queue perspective, that's possible too. In the case of a failure, John Roberts is going to be notified. Multiple email addresses as well as distribution lists can be put here as well, so obviously. Then on the connectivity, we have a file folder set here. So we're going to be receiving files from an inbound folder. Now, when I connect up to SPS, I'll also receive an FTP address, an FTP username and password, and I will use those instead of my local file folder by plugging in the FTP address, my username and password right here. And I'm going to be receiving and sending directly to and from that SPS FTP site. In my demo though, I'm just going to use a local file folder. So that's in essence my EDI setup. Go to EDI ports. So these are all our different document types and maps. If you've been working with EDI, you'll recognize some of these numbering schemes and the 850, 810, and so forth. So in essence, what we integrate with is on the customer side, we do inbound purchase orders, inbound 850s, which are converted to NAV sales orders. We do outbound ASNs, outbound invoices, and so on. We also have integration on the vendor supplier side with outbound POs and inbound ASN and inbound invoices. And we also have the 9 series documents, as you can see here, which allows you to integrate with third-party logistic warehousing to send them pick tickets and inventory adjustments and receive confirmations of receipts and so on. We're just going to look into one of these. Before we do that, though, this is all loaded up using RapidStart packages. So we have RapidStart packages available for all this setup, so no one's going to key this in. That also includes actually the EDI setup, which can be populated using an Excel document and then loaded up using RapidStart. We also have an online documentation portal. I'll show you the URL here a little bit later that you can access that and see all the information about the product as well as some example process flows. So we're going to go into this EDI port. It's our SPS inbound purchase order that creates a NAV sales order. It's associated with an XML port, so here's our maps. Here are our built-out maps that we have already configured. These are reusable. They're used for every installation. That map, XML port map, does not change from a structural perspective. It always remains the same. I'm going to pick up this any file that matches this. It's going to validate the schema, some other XML technologies that we'll skip. There's some options here too. If I want to release the sales orders, I can do that. So we can release the sales orders automatically as they come in. We can release them for EDI too, which will automatically process the sales acknowledgement, which is the outbound 850. We can have notifications set up on processing and failures. Usually you wouldn't have that configured, but maybe for new trading partners, you want to be receiving that email on the first orders that come in, so you can configure that for a specific trading partner and then receive those files, receive those emails and then turn it off as needed. It's going to use the default connection from our EDI setup, which is our SPS FTP site. So every EDI port is pretty much configured like that, inbound or outbound. Next, we'll go and look at our EDI translations. So we utilize NAV item cross-references in translations. That's going to be configured and set up. If you don't have it set up already, you could set up your EDI translations for items right here, but most likely you should use standard NAV item cross-references because they have more functionality available to them. Now, the cross-references that might need to be set up is the unit of measure cross-reference. So in the EDI world, each is EA. If you set it up as each fully spelled out, or some other unit of measure pieces or whatever it is, you might need to set up the translation. So from an EDI perspective, we know that EA represents each, and each represents EA on the outbound documents. Just another set of some examples here. So we're going to close that, and then we'll look at our under screens. This is our standard NAV SMTP setup. So we utilize the standard NAV email engine for email notifications. And then lastly, we also have an import-export process. So you can use RapidStart to export setup. So you set up a trading partner, you test it out, it's all successful. You can use RapidStart to export it. You can also use the import-export routine here to export that configuration and then import that into your production environment. So with that, I'm going to go through an example transaction. So we're going to open up our inbound folder. Remember that this will be sitting on the SPS FTP site. We have no storage of files in the local file folder, and then picking them up from there. It's going to be retrieved directly from the FTP site and processed. But in my demo, I'm going to use a local file folder. I'll make a copy of this file. I'm going to look at this file too. This is our XML file that is going to be produced by SPS. It follows this type of schema. So even if you've never seen an XML file before, you will recognize the structure, or you will be able to understand the structure here. Say this is the purchase order number, this is the contact phone number for the person making the order. If we scroll down here, we're going to see that the part description, the item number, the quantity, and so forth. It's very structural, be easy to understand, and this is what we would expect from any type of integration. If you've been working with X12 or seen X12 data files, you'll probably appreciate this format, and because those XML files are likely unreadable unless you've been looking at them a long time, in which case you probably wish you couldn't read them. So this is a very nicely structured format. And you can see it's also been the same, it's actually the same demo files I've used since 2008. So this file structure has remained the same, and there are no changes to it. So we're going to be receiving this file. I don't have an automatic process that runs in the background, so we're going to go into periodic activities, and we're going to manually run those processes. Actually, we'll just manually run the NAS instead. So let's run that. And this file will be picked up. So if we look at our inbound folder here, that file is now gone, and it's going to be picked up, and that sales order will be created in NAV. Now, instead of just showing you how that sales order was created, we're going to drill into a little bit what happens in the background. And the best way to do that, or one way to do that, is to show you what happens when an exception occurs. So right now I received that email saying something didn't go as expected. This order that we tried to process failed because the external document number here already exists on another sales order. So that XML document is attached here. I can now go into my EDI messages and I can find that failed message, but I can also go into my role center and I can see I have another failed message here. So the screens I'm going to show you now are not screens that every user is going to have to go look at for every order that's processed, but this is a way to demonstrate what happens in the background, and just instead of just showing you how that sales order is magically created. So what happens is that an EDI message is created. That message is put into the pending status initially when it's picked up from the FTP site. And remember, this runs every 60 seconds maybe. So every order that is published on the by your trading partners is going to be retrieved in pretty much immediately. And then after it's put into pending status, it's going to be processed. If it's successfully processed, and then the sales order will be created. In this case, it failed because of an exception. And the exception was that this is a duplicate order expected in this case. And it was not going to automatically create that order, and that's the rule that's been set up here. If we look here down here, the XML document has been decoded and looks at the, like this now. Still readable in this type of format because the notes from that XML document are very readable. So usually you will never have to read that, even if you have these exceptions, because this message here is going to be clear. The email will be clear on what's actually going on. So then we can process that and override that warning in this case. So I'm going to override it even if that order already exists or an external document number already exists. I'm going to override it. It warns me that it's also on a posted invoice. I'm going to override that as well. And then it has been successfully processed. It moves from that failed bucket to the processed bucket. So if we look at the last message here, this is the one we just did. So the document went from pending to processed, or in this case, pending to failed, and then we manually push it through to processed. And again, I don't need to open up these screens to have those sales orders created, because that will happen automatically in the background. On the EDI message, as well as the related documents, I'm going to have this link documents action button that's going to show me all the related messages or all the related data records. So in this case, I have an EDI message and related sales order that created. So now I can show that sales order, and this is the sales order which is created from from the EDI message. All the external document number, item information, price, and so forth have all been populated on this order. So that is the inbound process. We have integration to other types of systems or add-ons in Nav as well. If you have some packing solution already, we can integrate with that and pull those package level details for that outbound ASN if needed. That is something that can be done because everything is done in that XML port. We also have a pack and ship solution ourselves that allows you to track package level data in Nav and print carrier labels and UCC labels all from within NAV. And that obviously also integrates with our EDI solution if you need that for your outbound documents, that ASN. And there's also a mobile solution that allows you to do this on a mobile gun to pack and pick and then create that ASN. You can find more about this product at bcrp.com, and I'll show you that website a little bit later here too. But to continue that EDI process, at the end of the day, independent on how my fulfillment is and what solution I'm using to actually track the package level details, or if I don't need to it, maybe I just post from the sales order, I'm going to have a posted shipment and a posted invoice in Nav. And those are the two documents that are the source documents for our outbound invoice and our outbound ASN or shipment. Posted invoice and a posted shipment. So in this case here, I'm just going to fill in quantity to ship and override that warning in terms of my warehouse shipment. And we're going to ship an invoice, a single unit here, just right from the sales order to create that posted shipment and a posted invoice. And both those documents now will be marked for EDI because this customer is configured for EDI. So let's look at that first. So on this customer, if you look at the customer record from an EDI perspective, this has been set up for EDI invoicing, EDI credit memos, ASNs, change acknowledgement, not from that price catalog or 832 as it's called perspective, acknowledgements, routings, 753, 754, didn't mention those before, but those are available as well, and the inventory inquiry, which is the 846 if you need to send inventory status updates to your trading partners. We do support two types of transmissions here. You can send a full, and you can also send an incremental update. And these can be scheduled. So maybe in the morning you send a full inventory update of all the items that this customer purchases from you and give them the full inventory status. And then you can do an hourly update with any incremental changes that happened since the last original and since the last incremental update. So that's how the customer is configured and why this posted invoice and posted shipment will be marked for EDI when I post it. So the sales order was shipped an invoice, it was fully posted, the sales order disappears, and I have my history record now, my posted invoice and a posted shipment. But I can also go and look here and see I have a pending shipment and pending invoice right here. If we go and look at this pending invoice, it's just going to open up the standard out invoice record. And the reason this is pending is because it's an EDI invoice first and it has not been sent out. Therefore, it's pending. So this tab was added as an EDI invoice and an EDI shipment, EDI sent date and timestamp. this tab is going to be on all the documents in NAV. It was on the sales order. It's also going to be on invoice, shipment, on the purchase side. If we do integration there, you're going to have this tab there that gives you information about it. I also have on the sales order, I didn't show that, but I also have a link documents action available on that as well as on this invoice. So if I click link documents, I can see all the related data. In this case, my EDI message, which is my source EDI data record, my sales order, which doesn't exist. If I had archiving turned on, the archive record would show here as well. My related invoice, my related shipment. If we look at the shipment here, we can also see that this shipment is marked as an EDI shipment and it hasn't been sent out. So this would be my ASN. If I use pack and ship, I can access my packages here. We didn't go through that process, but those packages and package pallet details will be shown there. So let's send these out. We're going back to Role Center and we will manually run this NAS process again. So these went from pending to outbound and then out to SPS. So look at the outbound folder in this case, and since I'm using a local file folder, we'll just look at this invoice that we created right here. And there's that invoice and the way it looks when it's sent out and published on the SPS website. Or sorry, FTP site. And this is a XML document, standardized. The only reason I want to show you this is to show you the information we're sending over. We're pulling all the data we have in NAV and sending that over, independent of the trading partner needing that or not, since SPS knows what information they will need. Our responsibility, again, is to get them all the data and in a standardized format, independent on the trading partner, and SPS will, for this specific trading partner, maybe just pull out the net due days, the discount date, the basis date, and not the description and so on. Just to demonstrate all the information we're sending over standard. In this case here, there were no discounts and no charges and allowances and things like that, but all that will be supported obviously as well. If I go into NAV, I can see the process EDI message. I can see that invoice right here too. Let's create an EDI message. That data is available here too in this type format. It's logged in when it was processed. I have my link documents. If I go back to my invoice, I can show that invoice right here. And on the invoice, we can see that this is now sent out, meaning that's why it's not pending any longer. Same on the shipment. The last screen I'm going to show in this overview is an EDI search screen. So on the EDI search screen, we can search for EDI data. Let's get the EDI search screen open, and then on the search string here, I can type in any type of value that would have been present in any EDI document I've sent out or received. Type this in, and in this case, I should really only receive these three. Everything else here is from prior demos and such. But you can see that's this recognized as a purchase order number, and this is the sales order they've had, the shipment notice, advanced ship notice that is sent out, the invoice that's related to that purchase order, and I have quick access to all those. So we looked at the invoice before, but we can quickly look at that posted shipment as well, and just open that up, and we can see now that this was sent out, and that's why it's no longer pending. Let's say I got an email back from my trading partner, and not from my trading partner, it would be coming from my SPS, saying that that package tracking number was missing and it's mandatory. You need to fill that in and resend that. For some reason, I didn't fill that in, so maybe I'm going to fill that in now. It's going to be whatever tracking number it was, and then I can easily just go right here and resend that shipment. I'll get a warning here saying it was already sent out, and I can resend it with the correct tracking number, and then SPS will accept it and process it and send it over to the trading partner. And that ends that overview demonstration of BCDI. As I mentioned before, you can also read more about our other products right here on bcrp.com. So if we go right here, you can see this demo or a similar demo, and our pack and ship product, which allows you to track the ASN level details as well as the integration with carriers, and mobile, which is a mobile warehouse management system that also integrates with pack and ship and allows you to further streamline your fulfillment process.
Thank you, Bruno. This is Judy again. On behalf of Bruno and Beck Consulting and myself here at SPS Commerce, thank you so much for your time today. We very much appreciate it. If you have any questions or want to learn more about the product, you can reach out to your contact at Innovia or the website that Bruno has up on the screen there, the BCEDI, or the SPS Commerce website. Angie, we'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you everyone for the presentation. It was very informative. Like she said, if you have any questions, please contact one of us and we will get your questions answered. So I just want to thank everyone again for attending, and be sure to check out our website for the recording later this afternoon at www.innovia.com, and simply click on our past events page where you can see our previous webinars that we have recorded. And we will be presenting a couple of webinars next week. Customer Relationship Management, Tom Doran from Innovia Consulting will be doing the presentation on that webinar. And then we have Dynamic Web, who will be doing a presentation on digital transmitting in business to business. So again, thank you all and have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time.